Seclusion and timeout. Are seclusion and timeout equal for special education students? Is it equal for special education students? The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, passed by the United States Congress in 1975, is intended, quote, to ensure that all children with disabilities have available to them a free, appropriate public education that emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet their unique needs and prepare them for further education, employment, and independent living, end quote. Title 20 of the United States Code, Chapter 33. Special education from the student point of view. I was in special education in elementary school and middle school and experienced the consequences of it in high school and beyond. I'm David Potter. I survived special education, not a joke. Seclusion and timeout. Are seclusion and timeout equal for special education students? Let's look at a bill of the 117th Congress at the time of this recording. H.R. 3474 was introduced May 25, 2021 by Representative Donald S. Baird, Jr., Democrat, Virginia 8th. It was referred to the House Committee on Education and Labor in relation to the United States Department of Education and the House Committee on Armed Services in relation to the United States Department of Defense. S-1858 was introduced May 26, 2021 by Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat, Connecticut. It was read twice and referred to the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. History. The bill was last introduced and referred to committee in November 2020 as S-1858 and H.R. 8782. This came after a hearing on February 27, 2019 called Classrooms in Crisis, examining the inappropriate use of seclusion restraint practices by the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, Subcommittee on Early Childhood, Elementary, and Secondary Education. A key quote from the chairman's introduction as printed. Quote, in a 2015-2016 school alone, 122,000 students were physically restrained, mechanically restrained, or secluded, end quote. The context suggests that it is 122,000 incidents in the 2015-2016 school year alone in the United States and its territories, as the chairman of the subcommittee is from a territory. Link in show notes. The bill was initially introduced as H.R. 4247 on March 4, 2010 and S-3895 on September 29, 2010. Except for the 2010 H.R. 4247, which passed the House, all were introduced and referred to committee and then reintroduced during the next Congress. This is S-1868 of the 117th Congress. What does the bill say? A bill to prohibit and prevent seclusion, mechanical restraint, chemical restraint, and dangerous restraints that restrict breathing, and to prevent and reduce the use of physical restraints in schools and for other purposes. What needs to change in this bill? Include timeout. What does the bill say? Section 2, 12, seclusion. The term seclusion means the involuntary confinement of a student alone in a room or area from which the student is physically prevented from leaving, except that such term does not include a timeout. What needs to change in this bill? Include timeout in the definition. What does the bill say? 17. Timeout. A. In general, the term timeout means a behavior management technique that may involve the separation of the student from the group or classroom in a non-locked setting. B. Clarification. The term timeout does not include lowercase Roman numeral 1, seclusion, or lowercase Roman numeral 2, a separation of the student described in subparagraph A from which such student is physically or otherwise prohibited from leaving. What needs to change in this bill? Timeout must be included in the seclusion definition instead of being explicitly excluded from the seclusion definition 4 times. the seclusion definition, the timeout definition, and a clarification, and is not part of the unlawful seclusion definition in Title I, Section 101. Separating timeout from seclusion creates a loophole where removing or not using a lock or removing a door turns seclusion into timeout, which makes no material difference to the special education student in this situation. Removing the timeout exception would allow it to fit the "and other purposes" phrase in the introduction. By not taking further action on this bill during the 111th to 116th Congresses, covering a decade, Congress has demonstrated that it is not a priority. The 116th Congress waited until after a presidential election to introduce this bill. The 111th Congress has report numbered 111-417. It says that restraint is harmful, even using the title Preventing Harmful Restraint and Seclusion in Schools Act. If it is harmful, why must students wait? The report explains that timeout was defined in the Public Health Service Act, in a section about the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration of the United States Department of Health and Human Services, link in show notes. What does the law say? 5. Timeout. The term timeout means a behavior management technique that is part of an approved treatment program and may involve the separation of the resident from the group in a non-locked setting for the purpose of calming. Timeout is not seclusion. 42 U.S.C. 290 lowercase jj. This is titled Requirement Relating to the Rights of Residents of Certain Non-Medical Community-Based Facilities for Children and Youth. 290 lowercase ii and 290 lowercase jj refer to residential facilities. What needs to change in this law? Equate timeout and seclusion. What does the bill say? Lowercase a. Prohibition. No student shall be subjected to unlawful seclusion or restraint by program personnel, a law enforcement officer, or a school security guard while attending any program that receives federal financial assistance. Lowercase b. Unlawful seclusion restraint defined. 1. In general, in this section the term unlawful seclusion restraint means a. Seclusion, b. Mechanical restraint, c. Chemical restraint, d. Physical restraint or physical escort that is life-threatening, that restricts breathing, or that restricts blood flow to the brain, including prone and supine restraint. E. Physical restraint that is contraindicated based on the student's disability, healthcare needs, or medical or psychiatric condition as documented in lowercase Roman numeral 1, a healthcare directive or medical management plan, lowercase Roman numeral 2, a behavior intervention plan, lowercase Roman numeral 3, an individualized education program or an individualized family service plan as defined in Section 602 of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, 20 U.S.C. 1401, lowercase Roman numeral 4, a plan developed pursuant to Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, 29 U.S.C. 794, or Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, 42 U.S.C. 12131 et sequence, or lowercase Roman numeral 5, another relevant record made available to the state or program involved, or F. Physical restraint that is not in compliance with subsection lowercase e1. 2. Not included. The term unlawful seclusion or restraint shall not include a timeout, or b. a device implemented by trained school personnel or utilized by a student for the specific and approved therapeutic or safety purposes for which such devices were designed and, if applicable, prescribed, provided that such devices are not used to purposely cause a student pain as a means of behavioral modification, including lowercase Roman numeral 1, restraints for medical immobilization, lowercase Roman numeral 2, adaptive devices or mechanical supports used to achieve proper body position, balance, or alignment to allow greater freedom of mobility than would be possible without the use of such devices or mechanical supports, or lowercase Roman numeral 3, vehicle safety restraints when used as intended during the transport of a student in a moving vehicle. Lowercase c, private right of action. 1. In general, a student who has been subjected to unlawful seclusion or restraint in violation of subsection A, or the parent of such student, may file a civil action against the program under which the violation is alleged to have occurred in an appropriate district court of the United States or in state court for declaratory judgment, injunctive relief, compensatory relief, attorney's fees, or expert fees. 2. Limitation on liability. Program personnel shall not be liable to any person in a proceeding described in paragraph 1 or in an arbitration proceeding for violation of subsection lowercase a. 3. No sovereign immunity. No program shall be immune under the 11th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States from suit in federal or state court for violation of subsection lowercase a of this section. What needs to change in this bill? Isn't this criminal outside the special education context? To make it equal, make it criminal in the special education context. Civil lawsuits and withholding federal funds don't change anything. Criminalize restraint, seclusion, and timeout, not the disability. Involuntary confinement is not part of the regular classroom. It only applies to disabled students. The term special education appears 10 times in this bill. Regular classroom appears in the Individuals with Disabilities Act 42 times and doesn't appear anywhere in this bill. The fact that this bill is necessary shows that the school system discriminates against the disabled by applying harsher penalties to this one group only. How does this bill impact my life? Elementary school. I was involuntarily confined, which is part of the seclusion definition, in a walled-off area without a door, making it a non-locked setting, which is part of the timeout definition. If this was law when I was in elementary school, it would have made no difference. I was in a classroom with a timeout room. The timeout room was a walled-off corner composed of 3 wooden walls and the classroom's own brick wall. The opening had no door. The classroom corner was used as a short hallway into the timeout room. A door would have kept it a timeout room. A lock would have made it seclusion. For involuntary confinement, it doesn't matter if there's a lock or door. It hurts. To keep all students safe, include timeout in the seclusion definition, and seclusion, restraint, and timeout, and criminalize these practices. Golden rule. Disability is the one group that anyone can join for any reason at any time. Discrimination on the basis of disability harms everyone. You don't want to be treated the way the disabled are treated. Subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified of new episodes. Visit the website at notajoke.net. I'm David Potter. I survived special education, not a joke.